What happened to all the great American cities? What up, internet world? It's your boy Jermaine back with another video. So if y'all don't know me, I live in San Francisco. I love living in the city. I love city life. However, if we look around at some of the best cities in the US, San Francisco, many parts of Los Angeles, many parts of New York, what do we see? We see these once beautiful places that were walkable, that had lots of shops, that had lots of things to do, that had all these beautiful parks. We see these places have changed. We see a lot of closed restaurants, a lot of closed shops. We have malls that are half empty in New York and in San Francisco. You have people nowadays shop online more and don't go out to shop as much. A lot has changed. And, you know, I don't want to move from SF because I like living in the city. But then there's also, we all want to know, like, how did we get here? How did things get so bad? How did they get so bad that, like, stores don't even want to open up? You got mom and pop stores, they don't even want to open up. How did it get this bad? So maybe we can take a little route down memory road and we can kind of figure this out. So let's just jump right into this video here. So let's go back in time before the pandemic, right? Before the pandemic, you had New York, super popular place. You had a lot of tech companies that have moved to New York, right? Google had offices all over, Facebook, Meta, you know, basically New York was popping, right? You had Williamsburg just on the up and up, rents higher and higher, hipsters moving in. You got Brooklyn rivaling Manhattan, okay? Crazy, right? You had San Francisco just popping off. Everything's really expensive. People quietly getting priced out because the prices just kept going up on the rentals, right? You had plenty of jobs in both cities, San Francisco and New York. You had plenty of jobs in LA, okay? LA had so many jobs, oh my gosh. All cities had jobs. You know, you can just pick and choose. What do you want to do? You want to work here? All right, go apply. You know, lots of app jobs, okay? And then we had the pandemic, okay? So right when the pandemic happened, I knew it was real because I had a flight going to Vietnam. And I remember getting the money refunded. And that's how I know this was real, you know? This was when it was breaking out in China. And America was okay. We wasn't closed down yet. And then here you go. You got San Francisco say, oh, yeah, we got our first case. And then got San Francisco, oh, we're going to close down. And I remember that night, I went out that night. And I was just thinking, like, I wonder, what will things be like after this? Right? Will things go back the same? Will things kind of be the same? Like, what will life be like, right? And oh boy, isn't life different today? Oh my gosh, isn't life different today? Right? 4 years later. And, you know, you just look at the financial district in San Francisco and how it was just bustling with people going to work. You know, once you get off work, you go to a restaurant, you go to a bar, maybe you go see a show, maybe you go see a movie, maybe you go walking in the park, maybe you go cycle around the city. It was just a lot more people in the city, a lot more things going on, a lot more places open, a lot more jobs, a lot more everything, okay? And today, you know, SF and New York have similar things in common. Like, why go back to the office when you can just work from home, right? And then the lockdown started, okay? So when the lockdown started, the lockdown was, it sucked because we thought, hey, we're just gonna be on lockdown for 3 weeks. 3 weeks turned into, what, almost 2 years in California. Just think about that. Think about it. They kept extending it. Just kept extending it, all right? And over time, you just had people take off and leave. I remember after the first 3 weeks of the lockdown, it was a surge, an incredible surge of people moving, just right after those 3 weeks were up, because, you know, the whole work from home thing started then, right? So since people were at home doing Zoom for 3 weeks, working from home, people quickly figured out, oh no, I don't want to live here. I can just go somewhere else and live. Be totally fine. So that whole like the whole work from home thing is here to stay, you know. And then now you have more AI talk. Now you got autonomous cars, Waymos on the road. Like, oh my gosh, it's really getting scary. Like, where are we going? So let's go back in time now. So, okay, we in the middle of the pandemic now. 3 weeks go by. They tell us, oh yeah, it's going to be longer, right? And then a couple months go by. People are tired, man. People are locked up in their house. I knew a guy who, he was living with his girlfriend, his ex-girlfriend. And basically, she would work in the daytime and he would be at home. And then he would like leave, and then she would come home, and then he would work like the evening shift. So basically they never saw each other, and they just kept living together because it was cheap rent, like it was a rent control place. Well, after being locked up for, I think they were together in the house, locked up for like, I think it was 4 or 5 months. They basically end up splitting because they had to face each other. They had to deal with each other because of, you know, the lockdown. And I'm just giving that one example. Like there's a lot of examples like that. You know, I knew people who, you know, kids that had to stay at home with their parents longer, and, you know, they just hate it because instead of roaming the streets and doing what they want to do and being out with their friends, well, they had to just stay at home. And come on, yo, when you're used to running around doing what you want to do and then you just have to stay at home, yeah, it suck, right? Well, that was months, bro. It was months of that going on. And people got tired of it. And then when George Floyd happened, I mean, we taking it back. When George Floyd happened, it was just an interesting scenario how that played out, okay? First off, people were locked up in their houses. A lot of people, you know, lives change. So people were ready to go out. I mean, go to a protest? Yeah, let's go to a protest because there's nothing else open. There's nothing else to do. So yeah, let's go to a protest, right? Right? George Floyd really hit the country in another way because that was live streamed. And this wasn't like, this was a long thing. I think it was almost 8 minutes, right? That's a long time. That's a very long time. So that just made people mad, made people angry, made people want to snap. I mean, you got good reason to. I mean, look at that. That was sad, bro. That was horrible. And then we had the riots happen, okay? Y'all remember the riots, the George Floyd riots, and how, woo-wee, I went down to Union Square, I was live streaming. They was destroying all the shops. And when I mean they were destroying all the shops, I mean they were breaking the windows and robbing the shops. It was crazy, right? It was insane. And it went on not for 10 minutes, not for 20 minutes. It went on for hours. I mean, it was at least 2 to 4 hours it was going on. And the police were there, but it was just so many people. So many people, right? And then after that, I think we kind of noticed that, like, you know, the police kind of changed. Because before COVID, people looked at the police a little bit different, right? People looked at the police like, oh, they were like a little afraid of the police, right? Nowadays, you'll see young kids in the city, in the car, and they'll ride up to the cops and they'll talk crap to the cops. And it's like, there's no respect anymore. You know, you also have very few people that want to even be a cop after the whole George Floyd thing, right? You got cops that they don't really want to do too much because they just basically want to retire. They don't want to get caught up in no lawsuits, and they don't want to get caught up in, oh, you did this and you said that. They just like, oh yeah, okay, whatever. Okay. And then you had all this massive shoplifting start right after the George Floyd riots, right? It just got worse. It just got normalized. It just got to the point where, you know, 4 or 5 people just go in a store and take what they want and run out. It wasn't like that before the pandemic. Now, that sort of thing still happened, for sure. It happened. You would have people go rob a store, right? But they were not doing it nowhere close to how they're doing it now. Now, it's kind of calmed down a little bit because it's election year. So they've been kind of locking folks up. But I'm telling y'all, things changed a lot after the pandemic, okay? So I tell this story to say that this is how our cities look like. You have people afraid, because I remember when the George Floyd thing happened, I know some people were actually afraid to live in San Francisco because they saw what the people did. They saw how things got destroyed, and they saw how basically it was really not much to do. You know, I guess if they had more cops, right? But it was so big, it was so much going on that like the authorities were basically overwhelmed. And to some people, that was terrifying. And they're like, well, I don't want to live in San Francisco. I don't want to live in these cities because look at what can happen, right? Okay, so now you got fear. You got people moved away. People moved away from work from home, mainly from the work from home culture. I don't think too many people moved away because they were just afraid, you know. But probably some people moved away because they were afraid. You know, crime's getting worse. We see that the police don't really do much anymore, right? You know, you have a car break-in happen, and then the police is right there, and then the police don't do anything. Well, to some people, that makes them feel very uncomfortable. That makes them think that, okay, if the police don't chase people for like robbing another person, aka I could just get robbed and nothing would happen, right? Some people see it that way, okay? Some people see it like, oh yeah, I'm gangster, I ain't gonna get robbed, right? Some people see it like that. But it is kind of crazy to live in a time where, you know, the police, their role is like just not the same. Like, remember, like when I was a kid growing up, it was like the police would go after the bad guy, the police would go get the robber. And don't get me wrong, that definitely happens today. But in a lot of cities, how crime is and how, oh yeah, under $950, it's not a crime. Well, it's sort of like the laws keep the police from doing anything, right? If it's not worth $950, well, you don't even arrest the person. Well, if you don't arrest the person, what makes you think that stores are going to stay open? I mean, this is just something to just think about here. What makes you think that stores are going to open and move in and provide jobs and move into the community when the law says you can't do this? I mean, it's kind of insane what some of these laws are. Like $950. Basically, you can just go in and steal like $500 worth of stuff like every day and you be good. That is insane, okay? That is insane. It is. Like, how can you just give people the green light to take stuff and not expect things to close down? And then so many people blame it on corporate greed. They say, oh, it's corporate greed. Is it corporate greed, or is it just laws are just not enforced, right? Because you can blame stuff on corporate greed all day, right? You can say, oh yeah, corporate greed. If you're running a business, okay, and you have people coming in stealing your products, a small business for an example, you have people coming in stealing your products. If you want to stay in business, you are going to have to raise the prices on the other products to offset people that are coming in, taking stuff and not paying for it. Like, that's just how it works in business, right? If you're losing this much money, you're gonna have to raise your prices to offset that, so you can stay in business, so you can pay the rent, so you can pay bills, so you can pay employees. But for some reason, in the most popular cities in the US, the most desirable cities, New York, San Francisco, LA, this is looked at like, oh yeah, you just stole some stuff. Oh, it's okay. Yeah, it's okay. And I think it's really changing the way cities are. Okay. If you go to CVS or Walgreens and you want to go and you want to get shampoo, or you want to get, body wash or something, and you know it's locked up, well, you might just order it off Amazon. Okay. And if you start to keep ordering off Amazon, and more people keep ordering off Amazon, or just ordering it offline in general and not going to the store, well, that store is probably going to cease to exist in that neighborhood, because it's not going to be enough people going there buying the stuff from the store so the store can stay in business. Okay. So this is something to think about. Okay. Our cities are changing greatly. And when will things change? Right? So some people say that this is just the way it's going to be. And that's kind of hard to say, because we are at this time where AI is becoming more and more of a thing, right? And if AI becomes more and more of a thing, well, people don't necessarily need to be in cities. You can live anywhere, right? If things are going to be automated, okay? And then the whole turning offices into housing, that's something they've talked about, but some of these old office buildings in downtown San Francisco, you don't want to turn that into a freaking apartment building, yo. I'm gonna keep it real. You don't want to turn that into an apartment building. Other things you could do with those buildings, you could turn them into universities or maybe homeless shelters. Right? Because you don't necessarily need the same exact floor plan like you would need to make apartments that you're going to rent out at market rate, So you could definitely have a bunch of homeless studios. That could be a thing. Yeah, housing, right? Where you have a massive kitchen downstairs, and then upstairs you have, beds and it's sectioned off, and I guess they got to figure out the plumbing, right? Because that's another thing with those buildings too, is the plumbing and electrical is not so set up for single family dwellings, So it would be work, but they seem to have money for everything else they want to do. So I guess things are just prioritized. New York and San Francisco, they have so much in common. The crime has just gotten crazy. I'm actually quite curious. What do you guys think will happen to cities like San Francisco and New York? Do you think that they will just become Detroits, right? Or do you think maybe these cities are just crashing for now? Something else to think about. If you guys want to go into that for a second, well, some people suspect that a lot of these buildings in downtown San Francisco that have, they sold for this price before the pandemic, and now they sold for much, much lower. Well, some people believe that these prices have been artificially, that they've sort of crashed these markets so that they could pay lower property tax. Okay, so if you have a building in San Francisco and it's worth $100 million, well, you got to pay property tax on the value of the building. So it's worth $100 million. That was the last price you paid. So you have to pay taxes on that $100 million. However, if the building is not worth $100 million and you sell it to someone else for $7 million, 93% off, like some buildings in San Francisco have sold for, which is insane. Well, now instead of paying property tax on $100 million, now you're paying property tax on $7 million. So some people say, hey, yeah, it's just a way for, banks to crash the market, and then they can buy it up, and then they'll have cheaper property tax, and then the prices will go up over time. That's just something I've heard. I don't know if that's true or not, but I mean, nowadays you can't knock nothing now. You never know what's going on. Some people say it might be another pandemic. Some people say the electricity might go out for 6 months. I mean, I sure hope neither one of those things happen, because both of those Both of those would be really bad. But our cities have changed. All of our little cool shops, a lot of them have closed down. A lot of really cool, interesting restaurants. A lot of our neighborhoods have changed. A lot of our parks are now littered. Lots of tents. You know, in San Francisco, in the past couple weeks, they have cleaned up a lot of the tents because the governor said, hey, time to clean up. Time to clean it up. So they have done a lot. And I've been hearing, I don't know if it's true, but I'm pretty sure it is, but I've been hearing that they've been bussing people out. And if you don't know what bussing people out means, bussing people out is basically when you put people on the bus and you send them back to where they come from. So I heard the city's they've been bussing folks out like crazy. I mean, but I guess whatever works, right? I mean, that's kind of what they doing with it. So there we have it, our American cities, bro. They're on fire, them just burning down. I wish it wasn't like that. Like, I wish that cities were thriving. I wish they were, but not right now. People figured out, look, I ain't gotta pay $3,000 a month for rent. I can go live in Texas and pay $2,000 a month and have a house. So I can't knock that. I can't knock that. But anyway, I'm gonna wrap this video up. My video for the day. Like, comment, subscribe. Thanks a lot for watching. I love all of y'all. See y'all later. Bye-bye. Ow!